everybody, and welcome back to Safest Family on the Block, where knowledge is power. I'm your host, Jason, and joining me today is Marco Bellin of Seekadoo. Hello, Marco.
Good morning, Jason. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Can't complain, really. Nobody listens if you do.
That's unfortunately what I've been kind of experiencing with my concerns about kids' safety and privacy on the internet. I don't only produce the app you mentioned, Seekadoo, but I also have a website called privacyparent.com where I talk about all the issues on the internet. And actually one of our taglines is, empowering people with information. And so just we're synergistic in terms of exactly how we feel. The more information you have, the better informed you are, the better decisions you can make about what's going on.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of parents, because we're parents our age are at a very specific point where we speak technology and the internet like someone who took a couple of years of a language in college and maybe visited there a couple times, whereas our kids are native speakers of this milieu. And it can be, I think, even intimidating for some parents to look at the risks and the broad scope of what's out there and then make informed decisions.
I think you might be giving parents too much credit for their fluency because it might be like that, elementary school language course that you took that maybe you paid attention to and then have, can understand a few words, because the questions I get from people are so mind-boggling at times in terms of what's happening on the internet that it seems like they're not really paying attention. It's the fluency is certainly not there. And the urgency that I feel in terms of privacy and what's going on is certainly non-existent. So but it's a concern. People should be concerned about what's going on the internet, what their kids are accessing. On our website, Privacy Parent, we've written several articles about parents and kids being concerned about their permanent record. And my youngest daughter just had detention, and she made sure to tell me that it didn't go on her permanent record. And so kids are aware of their permanent records scholastically or whatever might happen, but they don't understand that everything they do on the internet is now becoming part of their permanent record. Every text.
I think it's one of those interesting things, because when we were coming up, the vice principal would tell us that's going on your permanent record, because he knew that we didn't know at that time that there was no permanent record. I mean, if you're not committing a felony as an adult, there's no permanent record of anything. But these days, because of the internet, that dumb thing you said that one time when you were 13 is now permanent and public.
Yeah, and that's a concern that kids, unfortunately, aren't really cognizant of, and parents haven't alerted their kids to the urgency or the problems that it could create down the road. And it's actually not down the road, it's happening currently. There are kids that aren't being accepted to schools because of posts they made. There are people that aren't getting jobs because of posts they made. And it's amazing that people still don't understand that you can't erase whatever you do on the internet, even texting, even, your post, whatever it might be, that's all forever now.
Yeah. And even on the apps and things that advertise being impermanent, there's always a chance that somebody else will take a photo of the phone. That's very common. So, there's a lot going on, a lot of risk. I think /hope that, by 10, 15 years from now, we'll have reached an almost mutually assured destructive situation where that guy's not going to get on me because of that photo of beer pong that I had when I was 19, because he knows I can find out that he likes the Grateful Dead. But until then, we're in some trouble.
Well, I think it's even more urgent than that, because the advancements in AI, people don't really understand that AI pulls information. The natural language AI that people are using, like ChatGPT, pulls information from the internet, and whatever information is out there, it can learn from. So, excuse me, people don't get that it's not 10 or 15 years down the road where these problems might become, arise, but it's really 5 years. I mean, what's going to happen I'm old enough to remember a cartoon called The Jetsons. And in the
Yeah.
Jetsons, they had a little robot maid that cleaned their house, cooked their food, basically knew everything about them. It listened to their house all the time. It responded to their needs. And that is going to actually be reality in several years. You're going to have these advances. But the problem is that like Alexa and like Siri, these things are going to be listening all the time, and they're going to be learning about you. And why can't that information be private? Google, Apple,
Yeah.
whomever are going to create these products, Amazon, are going to make sure that they are the keepers of your information. As you say, information is power, and it works in the reverse. When people have information about you, they have power over you. I
Yeah.
always explain to people that, so Seekadoo is an app that you have to pay for. And we explain to people that free isn't free on the internet. If you're getting something for free, you are the product. You aren't receiving something. You are what's being
Yeah.
sold. And that little piece is so missed by people that it's really like, I don't know when people didn't remember that there's no such thing as a free lunch. I mean, we grew up with a lot of these little phrases that, be aware of something that seems too good. But now, if it's not free on the internet, people aren't going to engage with it.
Yeah.
And if you have something for free, the only way people can build something or make something is to use you as the product. They sell your information, they serve you ads, and that's how they make money from you. They learn about who you are. And with the advancements in AI, that learning is just going to be accelerated and be more precise. They're going to
Yeah.
really know. I mean, TikTok can tell who you are within 10 videos you watch. They can literally peg the type of person you are, your age, your demographic, your gender, your everything. And it's the advancements in what's called predictive analytics and the analytics of data are so advanced that people don't understand. I mean, when you see an ad that you think is being served to you because you've been talking about it with a friend, that isn't necessarily always the case. Sometimes it is, but the AI has gotten to know you so well that they can predict what you're going to be interested in. So they're going to serve you ads for that before you even know that you want it. And that's
Yeah.
where it's scary, especially for our kids. In an article I wrote calling us digital guinea pigs, I talk about, like, in some of the ways that Billy Joel, we didn't start the fire. We didn't start a lot of the fires that we're putting out now. We're not, the ones that created the, international hell that's going on. We're not the ones that created the disparity in economics or whatever it might be. Those problems were created historically, and we're now trying to remedy those problems. But the problems that we're creating, or the main problem that we're creating for future generations, is the loss of privacy. And until we wrap our heads around what that means, and until we start to mitigate the problems that that's going to create in the future, that's the burden that we're going to be leaving for future generations that might be more egregious than anything else that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you and I are of a generation where we grew up watching Terminator and Blade Runner, and that's not how the AI revolution is going to get us.
No.
So there's a lot of risks and a lot of fear, and a lot of that fear is founded. Where does a parent who's worried about this stuff but isn't necessarily technologically savvy, where do we start? What are some simple things we can do to tighten up those belts quickly?
Well, the annoying things that you have to do are reading privacy policies. I mean, there's simple things like my children read privacy policies before they, ask me if they can download an app. And 80–90% of the time, they'll come to me with an app and they'll say, Papa, I know, that you're going to say no, but can I download this app? And I said, did you read the privacy policy? And they say, yes. And I said, well, what are the concerns about it? And they'll illuminate whatever they might be. And they'll say, I don't even have to say anything. They'll convince themselves, all right, I'm not going to download the app. I don't need to be tracked. I, understand what's going on. And that's what we have to start to teach our kids. That's what we have to start to understand about what's going on. It's important to start to have good practices around your privacy. It's not, you want to be able to block trackers. using a VPN is a really good way to mitigate a lot of these problems. Using a private browser. These are also things that we've built. I like to say I don't just complain about the problems. I like to build the solutions. And sometimes I come off, because I'm not a salesman, but I am, have products that we're selling. But it's more of a passion for me that I'm concerned about the kids. I'm concerned about our future. And I built these products because I didn't know who else to trust. You can't trust Google. You can't trust Amazon. You can't trust, Apple. And somebody out there has to start telling the truth and build products that people be able to trust. And that's kind of where I landed. We built my kids' safe search engine because many, many years ago, when one of my children was researching something on the internet, she received really abhorrent returns for the information that were so appropriate that I thought, how can this happen? So that's the reason I built Seekadoo. Seekadoo is a search engine that is curated by parents and teachers that only allow kids to a certain amount of websites that we make sure don't have what we consider inappropriate content. It's really educational. It's for children 13 and below. Excuse me again. And it allows parents the freedom to let their kids engage with the internet without the fear that they're going to come across material that isn't suitable or might not be appropriate or something that the parents would allow their kids to naturally engage with. It's something that we now, parents don't want to sit over their children's shoulder and make sure that they're not doing things or getting to websites that they shouldn't be getting to on the internet. And we've built Seekadoo so parents can have that peace of mind. The kids, we don't let them go to YouTube. We feel that that's a really dangerous spot because the progression in terms of how the videos are fed become angrier and angrier. And we didn't feel that kids should be allowed to have that access. So, we get complaints about that, like our kids can't get here, our kids can't get there. And we built our search engine so kids couldn't get to bad places. If you go to a website that your kids are, allowed to go to and interested in, and then there's a link to some other article that might not be appropriate, and the kids click on it, if it's not allowed by us, they can't get to it. So we've created a very safe environment for kids to be able to navigate the internet without the parents having to worry about what they're doing.
So you've got savvy professionals curating the sites that are appropriate and which ones aren't. I know a lot of schools have some restrictions on that, but those are usually set up by people who, that's not their job. These are teachers who in their spare time, with their limited knowledge, are trying to curate an environment that's as safe as possible. But it's always best to get a professional's viewpoint on this sort of thing.
Well, what schools do is called blacklisting websites. So they don't allow kids to go to certain websites that they know about. What we do is whitelist websites. So we only allow kids to go to a small group of websites. The IT people at school can't stay on top of every website that kids might do. And there's so many workarounds that, as you know, more than we do about that. There's no way that the school can keep track of that. So what actually schools do is they monitor the children's internet use, and that again becomes part of their permanent record. You don't need a school knowing every website your kid searches, everything your kid's reading, how long a kid is staying on the page. And that's another concern of mine, is that, even within schools, the amount of data that's collected based on the lack of ability for parents to control their kids' data is to me really abhorrent as well, because who knows what that's going to be used for in the future. Data is money to people, so you know where it's going to be used down the road. Even a trusted business could be sold, and data could be then mined. That's what we do, is we don't collect any data. We don't have any data about any of our users, which is what we feel is the most important thing. Even if somebody bought us down the road, they wouldn't have any information about any of our users because we don't have it. That's the best way to not invade privacies to not keep the information. And if more businesses acted that way, it would be easier to trust them, but that's not the case.
And so that's one big piece of the puzzle. And I think one of the ones that parents are least knowledgeable and therefore the most worried about and the most at risk about the way that the companies you do business with online or the sites that you visit collect your information, then use that information later. And a solution like a search engine like Seek do, with or without a VPN, things like that can help a lot. A VPN, for anybody who needs, that's a virtual private network that basically tricks the internet into thinking that you're logging in from a different place and with a different identity than one you actually are.
But
It's much more complicated. But
the distinction between that and a proxy is that we also encrypt all your information while it travels through the internet. So, if you think about it as, driving through a private tunnel that nothing can see you driving through, and you get to your site without anything being divulged. That's the way we like to explain it to the layman. It's a private tunnel for you to, access the internet where your information is jumbled and encrypted so it can't be read along the way. But we have our own VPN, and actually our VPN is unique in the sense that we only have one account per user. So we don't have any VPN that offers multiple users makes you have an account, which means they know who you are and they know what you're doing. We don't have accounts, so we don't even know who our users are. We have no information about our users. We don't know who you are. Not that we don't want to know who you are. We don't want to have any information that could ever be used against you. And that's the unique bit about what we do. We're the only group that only offers an individual account per, and not account, an individual package per user. And, there's no account. There's no information about the users that we keep. So there's certain simple practices that businesses could employ that could ensure people's privacy, but because data is so valuable, they don't. And that's the biggest problem is, the value of the data. I mean, there talks about data now being a commodity, and if you equate it to, like oil, data in a few years is going to be more valuable than oil in terms of sales annually. So people have to wrap their head around that. Again, you start your podcast with information is power, but you have to think of that in the corollary where, again, the information you divulge can be used against you. So
and that's a piece of the puzzle, that what other people are doing with your information, who's finding out what, the behavior of other people, and how we can manage and mitigate those decisions and their incentives. Another big piece of the puzzle, of course, is managing the behavior of our children. And, having an environment like Seekado that limits what parts of the internet they can get to is certainly very helpful. What are some other things that we can, as parents, can do to help educate our kids about safe behavior online, unsafe behavior online, and maybe provide some scaffolding and fences to help them make smart decisions?
Well, if you're going to allow, I had to acquiesce and allow my kids to use a social media platform that I wasn't thrilled about. But if you employ a lot of the privacy settings that social media platforms allow, that's one thing. Making sure that they don't post anything that is inappropriate is another. It's about educating your kids on how to use the internet properly, because, again, it's part of your permanent record. There are the safest practices are, you don't want to not allow your kids to engage in certain things because there are social ramifications to not being involved in certain social media platforms. But the way they use them is the most important thing, because children, young children, the platforms are not supposed to allow children younger than 13 to use them, but a lot do. And those are the ones that are most susceptible to, if there aren't privacy settings, internet predators, misinformation. There are a lot of problems that could arise. So privacy settings are really one of the most important things knowing who your kids are engaging with. It's not just social media, it's also gaming. I mean,
Yeah.
not a lot of girls engage the same way as boys, but boys will engage with their games and speak to people and have conversations. And those conversations are being recorded as well. Those
Yeah.
conversations are now being used to create, again, a permanent record of these children. And exclamations or something that they say might not be indicative of what your child is, but might be caught and again could be used against them down the road. You have to know who your children are engaging with. You have to know what they're doing when they're engaging with games and the internet. But you also have to trust them because you can't police them all the time. You have to teach them how to be good internet citizens, how to be good digital citizens, and what that really means in terms of how you engage with people, what you say, even the searches you make can be deterministic of who you are down the road. So it's really Privacy Parent is really the best resource for this because we write about all the best practices, all the concerns that people should be thinking about. There are just so many that it's almost too much to try and illuminate right now, but the best practices are really, it's the way you want to teach your kid to be a good citizen in society. It's the same methodology. You want to engage with them, teach them good practices, teach them proper behavior, and in some ways then hope for the best.
I've often, when I talk to clients of mine who are concerned about this stuff, drawn the parallel between internet access and driving. Because when we learned to drive as kids, we were given immense power, immense responsibility, and an easy way to screw up your life or somebody else's life forever. And the internet's the same thing. And we should manage our kids as carefully with their internet access as we're going to manage them when we put them in a car. And I think that includes, earlier on, like in 10, 11, 12, the equivalent of a learner's permit where, yeah, they're online, but they got you right there with them, maybe over their shoulder, maybe just the same table while they're on a laptop. But that kind of, you teach, like you said, you teach them what's safe and you enforce it at first, and then you send them out trusting that you've taught them well and that they're going to make reasonably smart decisions, for teenagers.
Right. I think I've trained my kids very well considering they read privacy policies and most adults don't even do that. And that's actually something that, another way to know what's going on is read the privacy policies for the apps that your kids want to use. I mean, it's pretty blatant now about what they're collecting and how they're tracking. And, people should be concerned about, what apps their kids are using and how they're engaging with them. And that's another thing I tell people, if you have apps on your phone that you're not using, delete them. 99% of the time, it's a free app. It's still collecting information about you. And there's no reason if you use an app, once or twice a week, sometimes, I mean, even that app you should delete and reinstall because there's no reason to keep them. And those are the practices you should be teaching your children is that, unless there's something that they really need, there's no reason to put it on their device.
Yeah.
These superfluous little silly apps that, morph your images or whatever it might be, they're built to collect information. And, the kids need to be more aware. The kids are aware that it's happening, but they have to be more aware about what it means down the road for them. And again, your best practices are, like you said, teaching a kid to drive is something that you fear because it's a vehicle, 3,000 pounds. Who knows if they're going to hit a tree, an animal, another car, kill somebody, kill themselves. And the internet is equally as dangerous. And you're right, people do need to engage. The learner's permit is a great idea. I might even steal that for Privacy Parent. So I really like that because it's what we're trying to do with parents is give them the information that can empower them to help build a better digital citizen in their kids. That's really what you need to do is just teach your kids, and then hope that they've learned the proper. And the other thing is the most important thing is modeling. Parents don't realize that, your kids learn from everything you do. So if you're telling them not to, text at dinner or engage with certain things, and then you're doing it, they're not going to respect the, do as I say, not as I do thing. They're going to, go and do those things as well. And then, you're in real trouble. So modeling, parents have to disengage from the internet as much as children do. You need to put time limits. Actually, your eyes are deteriorating at such a rapid rate at this point that, that should be another concern for parents, because
Yeah.
your kids to be able to see without glasses down the road. So there are just a lot of concerns, Jason. And, I hope I've been able to illuminate some of them. I know I, went off a little bit in the beginning about privacy, but it really is
It's important.
not just being safe on the internet. It's really about privacy in the future and what's going to happen with our children and their information down the road. We're going to be dead. In some ways, people are like, yeah, I've given away all of my information. I don't really care. Well, you should be caring about your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, and, the society that we're going to leave, our progeny in the future.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most important takeaways is that this begins with us being knowledgeable about the internet and about privacy and about data security, so that we can give good advice and also model properly. There's that old saying about how kids sometimes listen, but they're always watching. And we need to get educated about what's out there and what we can do about it. And then your site, parentingprivacy.com.
Privacyparent.com and
then the
CKD.com. And also our VPN, if you want to look for it, is called the DS Defender, the Digital Surveillance Defender, which, it's a great VPN. It'll keep you invisible and do the things that you really need. And it's something you should be doing for your kids as well. I can't emphasize enough how you don't want your kids to have a permanent record on the internet. I don't want your children's information to be out there and to be available for sale. So, another thing that I forgot to mention, turn off location services. That's the other, huge thing that you can do to emphasize, start to protect your kids' privacy. So, Jason, I really appreciate your time and you allowing me to talk to your community. I think it's really important that people start to consider the ramifications of the loss of privacy. Being the safest family on the block means that you're protecting your kids digitally as well as environmentally. So I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's great work, and I hope people start to consider privacy as something as important as the other topics you cover.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marco. Folks, we'll be putting those URLs down in the show notes if you want to reach out and find out more about his project, or just ask him some questions. And thank you again, Marco, for coming on. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.